Hello and welcome to the Large and Unnecessary First Player Token podcast. This is episode 118. My name is Chris.
My name's David.
My name's Pavel.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
How's everybody doing?
Okay.
Well, some of us are awesome.
I'm just okay.
You're okay, Dave?
Yeah, I've got the cold.
That doesn't sound promising. Yeah, I caught a little bit of that.
Yeah.
I feel for you guys.
It lasted about 6 hours, now it's gone.
It must be tough not to be awesome.
Well, you know, my girlfriend always says that it's all this outdoor work that I do. I catch colds very easily, but then very easily get rid of them.
Fair enough. I would think that you get infected because you're touching all of those unsanitary things.
Yeah, that's you.
Well, yes. Jesus,
Anyway.
that's actually very true. All those mice and keyboards and stuff. Oh my
Oh yeah, man.
God.
Those are horrible. I was thinking about this the other day there. I was watching some TV show where they were showing, like, they were doing little tests that showed all the stuff that grows and things like that, and it was pretty horrible.
I think phones are the worst, isn't it?
Yeah,
And
phones are awful.
Being
Especially
IT, I work with bloody phones as well. Ooh.
Especially if you take your phone to the toilet with you.
Which I never do, obviously.
Yeah, they actually pointed out that people that took their toilets to the phones, those were the worst ones. The worst ones. They were horrible. Anyway, I'm not trying to give anybody some sort of, like, some sort of complex, so let's stop talking about this. We're here to talk about video games.
Hey.
Yeah. I'm still shocked, but it's fine.
You're still shocked?
Ugh.
What are you shocked about?
What? I work with those phones. People go to toilets with their phones, and then they're like, oh, it's broken. Fix it for me, IT man. Jesus.
Well, how's about we talk about something related to that, Pavel?
Oh, yes, let's talk. Nice transition there.
Do you like that? Do you like that?
Yes. Because we're going to talk about a Plague Tale, Innocence. And as we've just proven, users are not innocent. I mean, my God, people, stop doing this. Right, sorry, no more flashbacks to my work. So, instead of horrible people dropping their phones in toilets, we're going to talk about A Plague Innocence, which is a PlayStation 4 game, as well as it's actually a multi-platform video game.
Yeah.
Released
I've been
rather
playing
recently.
it on Steam, on PC.
Unfortunately. So some of our more loyal listeners probably know what that means. That means that I'm going to try to talk about A Plague Tale Innocence. Dave's going to try to trigger me and stab me in the back. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm actually not, because I'm not feeling that well. I'm just going to let you mostly do it.
All right. So you're
take the
going to make
lead.
it easy for me simply because you're not feeling that well.
Yeah.
See, this is exactly why the protagonist of A Plague Innocence has it easy, because all the soldiers and all the enemies in the game are fairly easy to beat, because most of the time it's the plague itself getting them, or all the background dangers like the rats and stuff like this. So you don't have to even try. You can just hide in the grass and sneak around. So I can just review this game, and Dave's not even going to try to backstab me. That's awesome.
No. I've only got half a page of notes, so...
Crap. Right, well, so let's get to it.
Yeah.
Plague Tale Innocence. It takes place even in, I suppose I should say, the Dark Ages, sort of, in France. Dave,
Oui.
a question for you. You've played this game. There is only one correct answer. So the question is, what's your audio settings when you're playing this game?
I have it set to French.
What, both audio and subtitles?
No, I have the subtitles in English so that I know what they're saying, because I don't speak French. But I changed...
Yeah, me neither.
I changed the audio to French.
Yeah, me too.
Right, I'm confused. Why is the French important?
Because the game takes part in France, and you're playing...
The main characters are French. And also whilst
Amicia
the English...
de Rune.
Yeah, Amicia and her little brother Hugo. But also I wasn't super keen on the English voiceover for either of them. That's kind of what prompted me to change it.
You know how you get games sort of taking place in non-English settings. You normally then get actors voicing characters in English with local ethnic accents. Yeah, it happens in movies, it happens in video games, and here you essentially had voice actors doing English voice as in English dubs with French accents. It didn't really work.
It was okay,
well,
but yeah,
it was all right.
It's a little bit more immersive in French, and it's one of these games where you can turn off the a little bit of the HUD. Well, not that there's much to turn off, but that helps a little bit as well, because I guess it should be a game about immersion. It's a very story-focused game, isn't it, Pavel? I can see I just point smiling.
This is the moment when Dave starts moaning, but let's wait for it. I'm sure that it's going to unleash on us like a horde of diseased rats in a moment. This game is a proud, I think, example of a genre which I really enjoy, and Dave pretends not to, which is a game mostly about telling a story.
Yeah, I hate stories. It's well known. I just want pure gameplay, like Space Invaders. It's never been bettered.
Or those strange games when you have newts coming at you that look like just a letter X or a letter V on the keyboard.
No. I like a good story as much as the next man.
When you're playing a good story-based game, and you're going from one area to the other, faced with tasks that you have to accomplish, and quickly realizing that there is only one possible correct solution and none others. There isn't really any turns you can take. Are you still able to enjoy yourself properly because it's a good story?
It depends. It can, when it's, as you've correctly guessed, it is something of an issue. One of the things I've got written down here is, I've got written down running. There was a section, you push forward a lot in this game. A lot of this game is pushing forward on the joystick and maybe steering a little bit.
Are you worried for a controller that it gets worn out?
It's like where in my PS4 controller, right? Yeah, but I don't know. I think it can be done well, but I think and it's okay in this game, but it can pull you out of it a little bit at times. There's a lot of this is meant to be quite a dramatic story about, we haven't even really explained about this girl Amicia and her little brother, and they're part of a noble family, and the Inquisition turn up one day and do,
as they do,
as they want to do, and do terrible things, and they have to run away. So they're basically on the run, and then on top of that, this sort of supernatural occurrence seems to be going on around them, because it is the time of, or there is a plague ongoing in this area of medieval France, but there's something a bit more going on, because you have these rats. I think we can't really, it is a bit of a spoiler, but it's such a key part of the game that we can't really talk about it without mentioning them.
I'm sure the rats are in every single trailer for the game, so we should be okay.
Yeah, and there's a kind of, the rats, they were swarming out of these holes in the ground. If you go anywhere near them, they'll devour you. As Pavel kind of alluded to earlier, they will also devour AI characters if you can somehow lure them into where the rats are. Similar to Alan Wake, perhaps, your one defense is light. They don't like light, so a lot of it is about lighting torches and scaring them away, throwing little rocks with your sling that knock burning lamps or and such over, and set fires that scare the rats, and making like a path through them. And there's various other mechanics and they're brought in slowly as you play, or gradually, I think is the word. And that's the sort of core of the game. I would say you're playing through, and it's very story based, and it's very pretty. It's extremely pretty.
I fully agree. The game is really nice. It will easily challenge most of your third-person sort of adventure games. It just looks gorgeous with the lighting and all the details. And I think in most stages they've really done their homework, because quite a lot of those NPCs and surroundings look very sort of historically accurate, and we would know because we obviously lived in those times, so we're experts on medieval France.
Medieval French villages.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been so many times. Yes, but just like Dave mentioned, it's essentially the first few. I'm going to say the first hour, easily, probably a couple hours of this game is going through the story and just playing through fairly easy puzzles, because the rats that constantly swarm around you aren't really the enemy. They're essentially just a background puzzle, and most of the time there's only one way to find your way through those puzzles, which is to say that they're fairly easy puzzles. Things get not really that much more complicated later on, so the game tends to be on the easy side, and I'm going to say that if once you make a mistake, it's usually a simple thing that you might do, and you end up dying very quickly, because Amicia is not a character with any sort of.
And I've died a lot in this game. I should add.
You just keep dying and
accidentally walked too close to the rats, died.
Yeah.
Just bumped. I mean, I do go out of my way to try and break the game from time to time. So like walking as close to the guards as possible, just experimenting with, like, you know,
as any responsible player.
Yeah, you know, like I was talking about the sort of fake drama that sometimes is in the game. Like there was a time when I ran into a room and slammed the door behind me, and the guards were like banging on the door, and Amicia's like, "Quick, Hugo, we have to get out of here. They'll break through the door any minute." Well, guess what? They're not going to break through the door any minute. They bang on that door forever. I left it there for ages just to check. There's a lot of little bits like that just slightly niggle me, but then occasionally there actually is a guy. So I'm always like looking behind me when I'm doing these enforced running segments to see if there actually is someone chasing me, and sometimes there is, and then I die because you do have to keep running when the game wants you to run.
Because I think it's when it's sort of story dictated, they just doing what they're doing. Whereas if it's actually engine based and the game expects you to maybe come up with some sort of effort, then at least you'll see those visual cues with the guards getting more and more alert and eventually aware of your presence and chasing you. You can disable it, because this game is rather pretty. You can actually get rid of GUI entirely, but I think the game would really get much harder if you did that.
I don't know. I've been playing it without the GUI. It's not, well, so far I've not finished it. It's definitely doable.
You're just getting to the one area where the game actually becomes a game, Dave, because up until, and we shouldn't really be giving spoilers here, but for quite some time, I'm going to say, I think for about 1/3 of the game, this is essentially just a story and a tutorial of what you can do. From about 1/3 of the game, the places you're put in will start, I think, getting slightly bigger, and you will be given a choice how to approach things. And this is purely from a stealth-based action game where you can assassinate certain characters, hide from others, and do things like this. So yeah, potentially you might get to see more of that and more of the actual stealth mechanics. So I'm just going to say, let's quickly say what, in my opinion, and let's see whether Dave agrees, what a Plague Tale is and what it isn't. I thought from the previews, possibly, that this game would attempt to be Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice wannabe, which is a slightly smaller game, but still looking AAA, if you know what I mean. And it possibly was planned to be it, but subjectively speaking, I would say that it's really not, simply because Senua's Sacrifice had a very solid combat mechanics, and also it's probably in parallel in the way it's telling its story, whereas A Plague Tale tells its story in a fairly conventional way, so we'll see how deep it goes with the emotional part of it. But in terms of gameplay elements, which isn't even seen at the beginning at all. At the beginning, as Dave really likes it, it's really just an interactive, slightly story. Eventually, it becomes a sort of traditional stealth-based game, which is, I'm going to call it, a weak sauce Last of Us. Dave, how would you describe the gameplay?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably agree with that. There's parallels to be drawn with games like Ico as well, and Beyond Good and Evil it reminded me of, because Beyond Good and Evil had stealth as well. And even, I mean, stealth is such a polarizing thing now as well. And I mean, it's done okay in this. Like, it's reasonable, but without, we could spend ages sort of identifying exactly why it doesn't quite hit home. And I don't know, but I've seen, I've played other games that are just stories, interactive stories, and enjoyed them immensely. And it's almost like the gameplay in this just doesn't quite click for me.
I'm going to say, in Last of Us, your stealth gameplay eventually becomes your combat gameplay, and both aspects are solid, whereas in this game, stealth is all you have. Once you get discovered, you have very, very limited chance of maybe recovering, and only if it's one enemy that's discovered you. If there is multiple, you're simply dead, and you go back to your save point a few moments before, and quite often at the beginning of the map. And games that are trial and error tend to be polarizing, as you said. Sometimes trial and error isn't easy to be done correctly.
No, I mean, I remember playing the Hitman, one of the more recent Hitman games, not one of the good ones. And that's what I thought. I was like, this game is just trial and error, and it's not fun trial and error, and it's badly in need of that rewind mechanic that was in games for a little while back when they did the Prince of Persia game and some other driving games. I always felt stealth games, you may as well have a rewind, because that's basically what you're going to do, is go back and try the same thing slightly different. Not, you're not going to bump into the guard like you did, and it's not great, and it's a shame. But I am enjoying this game though. It's visually in points superb. Like some of the environments that they've constructed are very imaginative, and the engine is really good. The animations are a bit, this isn't AAA, it's like 1A or something, isn't it? Because there's like bits, rough edges here and there that you come across.
But it works. Yeah, most of the time it works, and it's got its own charm, definitely. So even for just the immersion side, which I particularly like in games, and Dave is okay with, for immersion alone, I would definitely pick up this game.
Yeah, it's worth playing. It's just it's like a little bit of work almost, especially to begin with. You got to sort of stick with it.
Persevere, because you get more gameplay. Whether it's going to get deeper, I'm not sure. At the moment, I got to the place where it's enough to keep you entertained. Yeah,
and also I just felt I was just engaging more with the story as well. As it went on, more interesting things were starting to happen. Pawel,
definitely play with French subs.
Do you want to guess what I've written in my notes? A little game for you. See if you can have some attempts to guess. I've got a very few things. See if you can, like 3 things really that I haven't mentioned. Do you want to guess what any of them are? Just one word.
Chests.
No. You see. I didn't actually.
That's a pretty good guess.
It is a good guess, but it's so obvious I didn't even write it down. Because it's one of the things that this game has chests and resources and
crafting. It has crafting.
Entirely unnecessary. I won't go into it because we don't have time, but it's completely unnecessary. Could have been handled. Could have had the same things achieved.
Because it's very bare bones, isn't it?
It could have been achieved in a much more immersive, story-driven way rather than the strange crafting to upgrade like your sling and various other things. No, I didn't write that down. Anything? Any other guesses?
Hugo's Herbarium.
Right. I haven't written that down either, but that's my number one favourite thing about the game.
It's
the
such
flowers.
An endearing thing, isn't it?
Oh yes. Yeah, and that's the key. Those are the things that make these games, and that is by far the best thing.
Go for it. Just mention that.
Yeah, the little child Hugo, and a lot. It's all about guiding him and so on. And a lot of the puzzles are like Ico style, or it's not really Ico, but other games where you can get him to run to pick up things for you and stuff like that. But he's this lovely little kid, but he loves flowers. And every so often you'll come across one and he'll like pick it up and he'll tell you a little bit about it, and he puts it in, or Amicia puts it in her hair and wears it in her hair for a little while.
And then, so essentially you can recognize which part of the game you're in, because Amicia has got a different flower in her hair. And as you go through the game, there's always a flower, but they obviously visually different, so it's a small part, but for some reason it just makes you connect.
These are the things that make these games, and it doesn't have enough of them so far. I mean, there's this caveat: neither of us have finished it. Things I've written down. I wrote down goose because you can chase a goose. It's amazing.
There is a goose.
I wrote down belts.
You can pet a dog in the game.
Belts, because you can tell it's in medieval times because everybody has that weird thing going on where they tie their belt like in Game of Thrones. It's like, what even is that? Is that a real thing? Where it sort of points down towards the ground, like a bit of it.
From the few times that I was in medieval France, yes, everybody wears belts this way.
And I also wrote log, which you would never have guessed. There was this amazing one last thing, right? We talk about the great environments, and then there's little things here and there. And I got to a little village, and we'd crossed over a river. And I was just having a look around, and I looked behind me, and there was a log floating down the river, like a sort of broken section of tree. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this. Just a single one, like floating down. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen this in a game before. Sometimes you have stuff floating in the water, but I was like, this is so cool.
But I think that's because the actual direction, like film direction in this particular game, is very solid.
Yeah.
Every environment you're in is just made like a film, like a movie shot.
Unfortunately, I went and had a little walked up to the top of the river and waited.
You attempted to break it,
and then, unfortunately, to my great disappointment, another identical log appeared and floated down the river, and I was sorely tempted to quit the game at that point. And I think I've changed my stance on Brexit. As a result of this, it made me really angry.
Dave, are you one of those gamers that enjoy a game and then on purpose try to break it so that they don't have to enjoy it anymore?
Oh no, that's me, Pavel.
Ah, okay. Right, well, I'm not sure about Dave, but I'm going to continue to enjoy the game because I can see that it's opening up more, so there's going to be more gameplay elements or more complex and harder puzzles, and I think we'll come back with the second part, hopefully, of the review, yeah?
Yeah, let's hope so.
Okay, cool. So who's that by? When did it come out? All that stuff?
We could do that as well. So this is done by Asobo Studio, and it's been released I'm going to say 2 weeks ago. That's for your standard Windows, your PlayStation 4, and your Xbox trio.
All right, cool. Thank you very much. That sounds quite cool. Right, I'm going to go next, I think. I'm going to give Dave a rest, seeing as he's not feeling very well.
Thank you.
It's because I have been playing a couple of things, actually, because I completely forgot about the other game, but just the other day there. In fact, Dave, you mentioned this game on our last video games episode. Right at the very end of the episode, you pointed out that What Remains of Edith Finch was available on PlayStation Plus.
Yeah.
So I did download it, and because my girlfriend's here at the moment, we sat and played through it because I thought this is going to be a game that she's going to really enjoy. This game's brilliant. It's so good. It's one of these walking simulator things. You're just kind of walking about in the house. I mean, you have talked about this on a previous episode, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it, other than just to say that it exceeded my expectations.
It got a lot of rewards, didn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean it is. I mean, it deserves it. Just in terms of the story it tells, the way it looks, there are so many sort of like cool little moments in it when you're doing, because I mean the game's like a series of flashbacks, isn't it? And you're sort of controlling various people through these flashbacks as Edith Finch learns about the secrets behind her family, from her family home as she goes through and goes into people's rooms that she's never been in this mysteriously huge house. And yeah, there's so many cool little moments when you're controlling all these different people, when you're doing different things. It definitely exceeded my expectations, because the only other sort of walking simulator game that I've played was Firewatch.
Right.
But I would say that that's a completely different type of walking simulator. But it told a cool story. Edith Finch tells a cool story. It's not very long. I mean, what was it? I think an hour and a half to 2 hours it took to play through the whole thing.
Yeah, thereabouts, I would say.
Yep. And
I mean, it depends.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how much time you spend just like looking at things.
Yeah, true.
You could maybe stretch it to 3, I think, but yeah, it's not long. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I mean, it's definitely one of the best games that I've ever played, I would say. I think I said that in the last podcast.
Yeah, I think you did. High praise indeed. But the only other thing that I've been playing other than that is I went back and started playing Darkest Dungeon again. Mainly because I think it was on offer on PlayStation Store. I have it on PC, so I've played it on PC before, but I've picked up the PlayStation version with the DLC and all that sort of stuff. Mainly because I was feeling very lazy and I felt like I could play Darkest Dungeon just sitting on the couch. That sounds like a good thing to do.
This is middle-aged gaming, Chris.
Oh yeah, I know. I was so lazy. I was just like, bugger it, I'll sit and play this. So like I say, I've attempted to play Darkest Dungeon before and I didn't do very well with it. This is a very, very hard game.
I think, but I've not managed to get there. But I think this game actually is all about not doing well in it, and I failed to grasp the concept.
I was going to say, actually, because when you start this game, there's actually a warning at the start of the game that tells you that this game is very hard, that you are going to fail, that people are going to die, and it's the warning, I think it says, it uses the phrase, it's about making the best of a bad situation. And that is possibly the best description of this game.
And it's just so difficult to format your brain to it.
I know, but it is very hard, and I think this is why I struggled with it the first time round, because I think I was becoming too attached to my characters and all that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know what I mean, Pavel, because you have played this. Dave, have you played this?
No, I don't think I have. No.
Well, just to give a quick sort of overview of what it is, I've looked this up, and there's a lot of people that describe this game as a role-playing game. I disagree with that. This is not a role-playing game. You're not really playing a role in this game. You're not pretending to be anybody. It's so much. You kind of are. You're supposed to be the sort of head of this estate, but it is so abstracted because you're just controlling groups of people, and it's different groups of people every time. So I would disagree with the whole role-playing side of it. I would say that it's a dungeon crawl. It's a dungeon crawl game. I would say that it's more like a dungeon crawl with roguish elements.
We should say turn-based dungeon crawler.
It's a turn-based dungeon crawl, yes. But once you get into combat, yes, it is a turn-based thing. The idea behind this, I think the game starts the same way every time. You've got the same four group of people, and it's the same four classes. So there's various classes in this game. And I think you start off with is it a Crusader, a Plague Doctor, a Highwayman, and a Vestal?
Vestal, are you sure? Oh, well, possibly.
Yes, a Vestal, I think, is the sort of priesty type lady.
Oh.
And you get put into a dungeon, and the idea is that you have to just get to whatever you have to achieve in this dungeon. So there's different things that you may have to do in a dungeon. Sometimes it's just explore 90% of the room. Sometimes it's win 100% of the room battles. Sometimes it's, go and find these three things, or break these three things, or whatever, or kill this boss. It's stuff like that. The very first level is quite easy compared to the rest of it. you go in,
which is actually just bad design, if you ask me. It should be hard straight away, so that you actually realize.
I totally disagree with that. This is very, very good design. It lulls you into such a false sense of security.
Exactly, and that's why after third or fourth foray into the labyrinth, I'm like, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm so bad at this game. I cannot play it now. And it's not even a rage quit. It's essentially, I feel like the game is telling me, nope, you have lost already. You can waste another 20 minutes on playing it, but you have lost. You might as well re-roll your characters.
Well, getting new characters is definitely a thing in this game. You're constantly replacing people.
Exactly, and this is the part which I am having problems to sort of wrap my mind around. That this traditionally we're used to having a team in games like this, and sort of looking after them. And maybe somebody's injured, so you might have to heal them. And and sometimes someone is close to dying, so it's a problem. Whereas in Darkest Dungeon, and I think by design, you're expected to lose people. You're half of your team, your entire, prime team is supposed to be in recovery for a few days when you're playing with your team B and team C. Yeah. And it's just, this is the part where I cannot comprehend yet.
Well, so I think I had the same experience as you when I was playing it on the PC the first time, but just playing it on the PlayStation and understanding what the game is going into it a second time, I deliberately just did not let myself get too attached to my characters. I mean, I'm still feeling, because some of my characters are now getting to such a level that I feel like, God, I will be gutted if I lose these people. But you have to just kind of let go of that.
So do you put yourself in a different mindset instead of what I felt when I was
Yes, you
playing
do.
this
You
game,
do.
and the first time it was like, oh my god, this is this grim situation. We have to survive through these circumstances. So you instead become this disattached, cynical persona that's just sending these poor souls to their deaths.
Well, this is the thing. So, I mean, I say that you're kind of playing an abstracted role. The idea is that I think that you're the head of this estate. You've inherited this estate, and it's completely overrun with like monsters and stuff in the various places, in the caves and the great. I don't know what what are the names of these various areas? The Weald and stuff like that. I can't remember.
I've never even reached any others.
Oh right, okay. So you only got to the ruins. I think is the first place. Well, I think there are like 4 areas, and then there's the darkest dungeon, and the darkest dungeon is always there. It's always available for you to play. But it's like the hardest thing, and your characters will pretty much refuse to go in there until they're a very high level. Anyway, let's get back to how the actual game works, because you're always moving left to right in this game. So you've got your squad of 4 people, and they're in a sort of like line, and that's very important in this game because the characters all have their own abilities, but these abilities will only work depending on which place they're standing in the party.
Oh, I love that. So old school.
Yes. It's very old school. And they can also so some of their abilities will only affect monsters that are standing in certain areas as well. So, because the monsters will go from left to right, 1 to 4 as well. Unless they're big monsters. Sometimes a big monster will take up 2 spaces. So so you're always moving left to right, and it doesn't matter which way you go on the map, which is very confusing, because if you can walk up a tunnel that you've already been on, you won't walk from right to left, you'll still go from left to right. That's part of the game, especially in this PlayStation. I don't know what it is about the PlayStation, but it very much confused me in the PlayStation. It confused me less in the PC. I don't know why that is. It's probably just because you don't expect this kind of thing in a PlayStation game, but it is what it is, and it's fine. It's fine. It just takes a little while to get used to. But yeah, when the combat starts, like I say, it's turn-based. The monsters will have their go. You can have your go. It mixes up. Every character has their own stats, so their speed ability will affect how quickly they'll go in a round, but there's definitely some random number generating going on because it's not always the same.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of roles to make every role player happy, but as you said, it's not a role-playing game. In fact, I think it's got its own sort of genre now, because there's a lot of different ports and wannabes and essentially games made in the very same way as The Darkest Dungeon. But this one is definitely the most sort of solid and accomplished, and probably the most famous of them all.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, this game, I think it's been nominated for awards. I don't know if has it won awards. I think it may have won awards. It's definitely been like reviewed very, very well by lots of different people. I mean, this is a solid game. It's very well made. It's very well polished. So yeah, when you get into the fights, like I say, you've got the different abilities, and they can only affect certain monsters. And you will find that while you're in the fights, that you stop and you really think about what you're doing. And part of the game is building a squad, and you have to try and make a squad out of the heroes that you have available to you. So when you go back in between levels, you go back to the estate, and there you can hire more heroes. But you can also do various things, because there is a thing in this game called stress. But it is very much reflected on yourself, because this is a very stressful game.
Very much.
Very stressful game to play. Very enjoyable, very rewarding, very stressful. And you don't want to be sending heroes that are very stressed into the dungeons, because you want to let them rest. And you can make them get more rest in various ways. There's like a tavern, and there's a like a church that you can send them to pray or even flagellate themselves.
I'm sure that releases
kind of things.
something.
I mean, the game is kind of grimdark, isn't it? It does have a lot of grimdark elements.
But I think this is one of the more important aspects of it, that all of those characters develop these quirks and these flaws and various ways they interact with each other. Somebody was getting slightly stressed out, and suddenly they develop this greedy attribute.
Yeah, that's right. So, like, that's the thing. So if you're sending them into the dungeon and their stress levels are high, and some of the monsters do things that deliberately stress you out, they'll do abilities on you that do very little damage, or sometimes no damage at all, but they will just cause stress. And if one of your characters hits breaking point with their stress, then something bad can happen. There's a small chance that something good can happen.
Yeah.
Which is very good when it happens. Some things, they just become courageous and start fighting harder.
Yeah.
And that is, when that sort of stuff happens, you're like, oh God, because you're really stressing out about the stress. So when something good comes out of it, it's surprising and
it's very rewarding. But then two turns later, you nearly lose this character and you stress about it all the more.
Well, that's it. So you're kind of making a squad to go into dungeons out of the best part, like the best part you can make, the least stressed, and you want to try and make a squad of people that work together, because sometimes like some characters classes do not work well with other character classes. Like if you've and there have been so many times that I've had to send a ragtag squad into a dungeon and they
just
have
completely
escaped with the skin of their teeth.
Yeah,
like
synergy between characters is the key.
It is very important, and one of the important things about this is that the characters have 7 abilities each, but when you hire them, only 4 of them are unlocked, and they can only have 4 at a time. And the abilities for each character class can be very different. For one character class, the 7 abilities can have very different things that they can do. So part of the game, there's a lot of thinky things that you can do where you're thinking, right, well, if I use this ability and this ability and this ability for this character, that'll work well with this other character's ability. Like that, there's a lot of that goes on in this game. Like Pawel says, the synergy, and a lot of that is working that out for yourself. The problem with it is that unlocking these abilities and then training these abilities up to be even better costs money. Money's a resource in this game. There are other resources because you can improve all your estate. You can like improve sort of like the wagon that brings in the new characters, so that it brings in more new characters, or that you can have a bigger roster of characters. And you can upgrade like the tavern so that you heal more stress, or it costs less money. You can upgrade the blacksmith so that you can upgrade weapons for cheaper, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of different resources and stuff that you pick up while you're going through the dungeons. Limited bag space, that's a big thing in this as well. Very big thing.
Which also proves that it does have a bit of RPG in it.
Yeah, that's true. But it's very much just a game mechanic thing to try and make it harder for you. So it's another... The game's full of really hard decisions. And that is another one of them.
Chris, I'm not sure what's your actual tactic, but I'm going to share mine, and this is the only way I've attempted to play this game and remain sane, because this game punishes you very quickly after the first 2 missions, which are essentially a tutorial. Suddenly you realize that every single time you're losing, we're normally used to essentially picking up a quest and in one way or another fulfilling this quest, whereas in this game you essentially keep abandoning your adventures because you're barely alive. And what I found, the only thing that just allowed me to continue was getting attached to certain characters and actually caring for them, and just pretty much presuming that all the others will meet their grisly ends, and we'll see how soon. So I tend to punish a lot of my characters, and I'll keep some of them, just some of them, maybe 4 if I'm lacking, like really well healed, stressed out. No, unstressed, I should say. Yeah, relaxed and stuff like this. So every second or every third mission, I put together my A team and I actually try to make an effort. And all the other attempts, I'm really just like, nah. I will see how bad it goes.
I did that on my first playthrough on the PC. And
did that work?
Not very well. The problem is that you really need to be getting something out of nearly every dungeon you go into. Yeah. Because being low on gold and stuff. So sending a party in just for them to fail is something, like, if you're doing that a lot, sometimes it's something you have to do. I feel that it's just part of the game. But if you're doing that, like, for every second dungeon that you're doing, you're not going to get very far.
That's true, and I never have.
Yeah, so like I'm trying to really spend a lot of time just figuring out who I can put together and what abilities they need to work together well. And like I say, there has been occasions where I've put a ragtag squad together. There are different classes, let's say, they'll work together differently, but some of them are just crazy. Like the Jester is a nutcase. So, like, the Jester does a lot of abilities that move him from one space in the party to another, like he's bouncing about the place.
Okay.
And that became really, really annoying because some of my characters were just like, he has to be in the front row, and if the Jester's bouncing around the place, then, he's just messing the whole thing up. But one thing I will say is that I'm really tempted to just make an entire party of Jesters.
Oh, God.
Just 4 jesters, send them in there, and just let them bounce around the place all day if they want, because it doesn't matter.
For some reason, that sounds awfully thematic for this game.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, I don't know if you've noticed this, Pavel, but if you put together a squad of certain character classes, it gives the squad a name. So if you create the squad that is the Crusader, the Plague Doctor, the Highwayman, and the Vestal, they're called the usual suspects.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I've not really paid much attention, so there's more than just
And
those.
I think, well, yeah, there's more. So
Alright.
like if you put more in, so there's one where it's like the tour party, and I can't remember who it consists of, but it's like 3 of one class and 1 of another. I think maybe the Highwayman and 3 of another type of class, because it's like three people and their tour guide. And I think if you make a party of 4 jesters, it is called the Travelling Circus.
Oh,
So
perfect.
like, it makes no difference in the gameplay itself, but it's nice to see these little things. They're just like, it's just this little name just pops up above their head when you put this party together. I mean, there's so many other things in this game, like, you know, people get quirks, they get negative things as part of their personalities.
It's a big part
can
of the
be
game, isn't
really
it?
crippling. They can be really crippling sometimes, and you have to send them to, like, a sanitarium and things like that to get rid of these things. They get diseases. I mean, I've got 3 characters with syphilis right now.
But
you get
that's also
syphilis
what I
in a-
feel this.
Did you get syphilis in a dungeon?
Oh, because there's little, you know, beastmen guys that spew
like
on you.
armadillos.
Where else
and
would you
you'll
get it,
random
Dave?
diseases from it, you know. The Red Plague, I hate the Red Plague. I'll have to get rid of that as soon as somebody gets it. It's so crippling
This
for a
game
character sometimes.
so often feels like just dragging burden along with you. You start thinking it's fine, we're good. By the time you get to the end of whatever dungeon, you have so much unnecessary baggage with you, and you have to
Oh, yeah.
try and unload it, and you pay money in town for unloading baggage. Meanwhile, you're forced to take your recovering team for another mission, and they're still burdened with half of the baggage they had from previous excursions, and it just keeps building up. And before you know it, you're really carrying a lot of extra weight. And by weight, I mean all these negative, all these curses, all these debuffs, everything is building up. So even if you've got your team really well prepared, you'll find soon enough that most of them are muttering various, I don't know.
yeah. The little comments are cool.
Oh, they're
The little
brilliant.
comments they make, aye. And sometimes they'll say something and other people will become stressed out by it.
Yeah, which is fantastic. This particular bit, I was just aiming at this. The fact that a random comment made by a character that simply picked up a negative debuff to their personality, and a random comment made by this character can make a different character stressed out. That is such a beautiful meta game.
How long ago did you play this, Pavel?
I've never been anywhere else than the first.
No, but how long ago did you last play this?
Oh, I keep trying. I've
right.
attempted to
So
play
have you
this
got,
game
like-
like 5 times.
Have you got any favourite classes?
I tend to rely quite a lot on the Vestal, whose name or class
She's just a classic healer.
yeah, and healing is. I'm not sure if it's efficient in this game, but I cannot imagine going through without it. But the Highwayman, the guy with
The
the gun,
Highwayman's great.
Oof.
I love him. He is so good. That point blank shot that he does is amazing.
Yeah.
Have you tried the Man at Arms?
I think I did have one man at times.
It took me a while to figure him out, but he could be like one of the best tanky characters ever.
Okay, I've never actually figured out how to tank properly in this game, but that sounds like an ability that would be very useful in this game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can get him to do some sort of stuff like where he can get marked, which means the monsters are more likely to attack him, but then you can have him have a retribution thing where he just basically, anybody that hits him, he smacks them back.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really useful. So you need that, but you need, again, classic RPG stuff. You need to have a good healer there to keep him alive. So, try the Occultist for healing. That's hilarious.
I've not had the Occultist. I did have man at arms once.
He's the Lovecraftian guy.
Oh, of course.
He does eldritch stuff, and one of his healing abilities, it does somewhere between, like, I think it's 0 and 12 or 0 and 14 hit points. So sometimes he heals for nothing. But he also causes that person to bleed.
Oh, yes.
It's great. It's absolutely fantastic.
This game is brimming with ideas, wicked ideas, and whoever came up with all those things really had a solid imagination.
Yeah. Right, anyway, we're spending too long talking about Dark because there's so much stuff in this game, you could just find other things to talk about and keep going on about it. It is fantastic. One thing I will say is that having played it on the PC and played it on the PS4, the PS4 controls are extremely fiddly. It is not designed to be played on a PlayStation. It's doable. I mean, there is a way of doing things, but sometimes it can be really frustrating, particularly when you're trying to just look at somebody's stats and stuff and then swap out their equipment and that kind of thing. It can be really fiddly and it can take a little while. And sometimes it's not entirely obvious what you're supposed to be doing as well in terms of controls. So it's probably best to play it on PC if you have the option.
And it works lovely then.
Yeah.
This game is really it's actually one of my bigger gaming regrets, I'm going to say, simply because I have not yet managed to learn how to play, how to enjoy it properly, I should say.
Yeah. I understand that. What the other things, the artwork, the sort of art in it, it's very comic-y, we could say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Modern comic-y.
But it's got its own
it's
style.
amazing. It's really, really good. The music is cool. And the best thing about it is the narrator.
Yeah, I mean...
The narrator is amazing.
Music is fine, but I find that sound effects in this game, for some reason, are particularly well done. Those are small things, but this game has this ambience that it's both dark and oppressive, and more than most games. You start playing it, and after 2 hours... you're stressed out more than your characters.
Definitely. Right, anyway, like I say, we could go on forever. I'm not going to. Darkest Dungeon, it came out in 2016. It's by Red Hook Studios, and the sequel has been announced. It was announced earlier this year.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
Darkest Dungeon 2 is coming out.
Brilliant.
I don't think they've given a release date for it, but it is on its way.
Fantastic.
All right, Dave.
Hello.
What else have you been playing?
Well, just a bit of a short one, I think. I've been playing on my phone a game called Rebel Inc.
Boo! Mobile gaming.
Thanks, Pawel.
I had to get it out of my system.
This is related to something we played a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with the tattoo studio that you might know about. I think it's got nothing to do with the underground publishing house. It's got nothing to do with the band from the.
Hang on, let me write this
down.
down.
The band from the 90s. I don't think there is a band from the 90s called Rebel Inc, but it sounds like there should be.
There should be a grunge band.
No, this is a game by Endemic Creations, the makers of Plague Inc, which is the #1 rated strategy game on iOS, I discovered. And we've talked a little bit about Endemic Creations in a previous podcast because we were playing the board game version of Plague Inc.
Yes.
And that's pretty much what made me... I haven't played Plague Inc, the phone game, but our little play of the board game is kind of what made this successor jump out when I saw it in the App Store. So it was only £2, so I grabbed it and gave it a little go. Like its predecessor, it is a sort of 2D strategy game, real time, with tactical pause. Or just pause. I mean, what's the difference between a pause and a tactical pause? You can.
Very good
sorry,
question.
like some pauses you can't do.
I think
stuff.
a tactical pause you can do stuff.
And in Rebel Inc, you take the role of the governor of a nation that has just come out of a sort of long period of war, and is entering the sort of a period of reconstruction, rebuilding, and it's kind of meant to be a sort of parallel with places like Afghanistan and Iraq and other countries and so on. I mean, the music is a bit of a kind of gives that away, I would say, although it's never explicitly stated. So what you do, you choose your governor. You've got like a choice, except you don't to begin with. You just have to be the civil servant. That's the only one you're allowed to choose, unfortunately. And you're dropped you're dropped down at the map, and this is just a simple 2D map. You can't move around really, it's all contained on the screen. It's a map of an area of the country, not the entire country itself, just an area, and it's broken up into different sectors. And you can click on these and you can see that some of them are rural, some of them are urban, and they have different types of roads as well. Some of them have highways, and some of them have dirt tracks and so on, and there's like remote areas, and you have to choose where you're going to place your HQ. That's just your sort of base of operations. And then once you have done that, the game basically kicks off and the months start to tick by. You have an annual budget that's given to you, and you can use this money to spend on improvements for your government, I guess we'll call it. They're broken into 3 categories: civilian, government, and military. And what you're aiming to do is stabilize the region. And there's one of the bars up the top, which indicates the sort of stability of the entire region, and that's your role to get it from like where it starts, which is 0%, all the way up to 100, and once it reaches 100 you win. And the way you improve the stability of the region is by rolling out projects that make the local populace happier and more stable. So, you know, this is meant to be a war-torn region, so to begin with, you're going to go into your civilian page and spend some, or your civilian upgrade section, and spend some money, and you might choose to do like water. There's a whole sort of tree for the water supply, or you've got things like medicine, transport, jobs, that kind of thing, yeah. So you choose to spend money, and then these things propagate out from your HQ. So that's why it makes you choose a spot, because where you place it can have an effect because of the way it's connected to other regions. And the rate that they spread out will be controlled by various factors. If you upgrade the roads, like say if you upgrade the highways, it will spread more quickly towards areas where the highways are connecting to, if you see what I mean. If you want to, you know, there's remote regions that are quite far away. It takes a long time for stuff to propagate out to them, so if you can spend improvements on the sort of dirt tracks, it will propagate to those areas more quickly. So that's what you do initially, and then you've got your government page, which is sort of more like government initiatives, things like anti-corruption, or you can choose to do democratic transition. There's various bureaus of your government that you can invest in that will have various different effects, and you also have a military section, and you won't be able to do anything in the military section to begin with, but that's because at some point the insurgency will appear, and they're going to attempt to make your life difficult, and they're going to attempt to prevent these initiatives that you have invested money in from propagating. They're going to destabilize the regions. And once they appear, you can start investing in military things, and that's you can get coalition soldiers to come and help you. They're quite quick to arrive, and they're quite capable, but they're very unpopular with the local people and can actually destabilize the regions that they're in. You can get your sort of government soldiers, but they take longer to recruit, and they will increase corruption, which I'll come back to. And you can invest in drones and airstrikes, and then there's like supplementary things like translators for your coalition troops that will help reduce the impact that they have. But all you're doing is you're just clicking on these little hexes in the upgrade screen and spending money on them, and then that's them kind of implemented.
That's very similar to Plague Inc., the app. It's all hex based. Like you click on one hex and then it opens up some more hexes next to it.
It reuses a lot of the widgets, the graphical widgets from Plague Inc. for things like progress bars and the little updates that tick on the little ticker in the bottom left when to let you know notifications for things that are happening and so on. It's not the upgrade tree. It's not exactly identical to the way it is in Plague Inc. It's not that kind of network that Plague Inc. has, but there are definite similarities between the two. I'm not sure if they're that similar as a game though, but maybe unfortunately I haven't played Plague Inc. as I said, but maybe you can let me know once I've sort of got explained a bit more about it, because one of the things I did mention was corruption. Fighting corruption or not allowing corruption to become too high is a big part of this game. Certain technologies that you invest in will increase corruption, and it depends what they are. Some things have no effect on corruption. Others do, like I was saying, like things to do with like your local, or like, a good example is you can invest in, or I don't know if invest is the right word, but you can spend money to have local militias drawn up in each of the regions, and they will help prevent the insurgency from taking over that region as quickly as they normally would. So that's kind of handy, but the downside is they do obviously promote corruption massively. So these are the sort of balancing acts you have to kind of take. And there's other things you can do it's a little bit, I don't know, it's a little bit abstract, because some of them it's like you can invest in anti-corruption measures, just unspecified. I don't know what these are exactly. It's just something you spend money on, and it makes the corruption bar go down very slowly, or stop it from increasing as quickly as it normally would. But it's part of the game. If corruption gets too high, that's bad news for you, because it will start to diminish your reputation if you allow it to get all the way up to the top. And reputation is kind of your life in this game. It sits on the right hand side. It's a green bar. Generally it's going down most of the time. There's stabilizing regions will increase it, but stabilizing the regions takes time, if you see what I mean. So it's going down, and like things like the coalition troops will leave after a certain period of time. You can get them to stay for longer, but it decreases your reputation by a significant amount. So you have to think very carefully. You can't rely on the coalition troops forever. So you have to sort of transition towards your kind of local, your local infrastructure for your military. The combat is very simple. You just move the military units about in the map. You tell them where to go. You can have one unit per sector, and they will fight the insurgency if you can find them. Units in adjacent sectors will support them. The insurgency, when you fight, if you defeat them, they will move to an adjacent sector if there's one free. So the only way you can get rid of insurgency troops is to surround them, if you see what I mean. So initially you can't do that, because you maybe only have like 2 units available to you when you first raise your military, because you don't have enough money, or because there's another thing in this game, which is inflation, which is a very unusual thing. But if you buy too many things from the same area on the upgrade screen all in one go, it boosts inflation, so subsequent things that you buy cost more. So you have to spread out your spending over time. It's an interesting thing. I'm not 100% sure why it's in the game. It's obviously there for a reason, and it does make you play it in a particular way. What it does mean is you can't just go to the start and spend your entire budget on, or at least not all in one area. In fact, it's very rare to just spend your entire budget at the beginning. I don't think I would ever do that. I'd only spend like a couple of things, and then you wait and let the months tick by a little bit, and inflation slowly goes down, and then you...
Does this feel like a mechanic that they introduced into the game, like later on in development, as a way of being like, well, actually, if you spend lots of money in the same area, it makes the game too easy, so let's just put this thing in?
I can't say for sure. It doesn't...
Does it feel like it?
Doesn't. No, I mean, you could speculate that was the case, but without being able to remove it and play the game without it, I couldn't say for sure. It's an interesting little thing. It makes you, you do a couple of upgrades, and then you wait a bit, and then you're like, oh, and then you get a little bit more money comes in, because you get monthly income most of the time. And then you're like, oh, what am I going to spend it on now? And then you move your troops about and have little battles, and little by little, well, you either manage to gradually stabilize the entire region, or sometimes the insurgency just get completely out of hand and like just start taking over huge sections, and you just cannot, like, it can be really infuriating at times if you mess up the whole trap them in a corner thing. Sometimes you can just get it wrong, because like they move in a way you don't expect them to, and then you're like, or they'll split into 2 groups because of something you've done, and that's just really irritating. Happens, because that could be enough. If you handle it badly and start splitting, what was one thing, start splitting it into multiples, that can like just be a disaster, because while you're like trying to corner one, they're off like capturing like cities, and that's, if they get a foothold in a city, your reputation starts plummeting, because that's a really bad thing. You want to prioritize keeping them out of like highly populated areas, and that's basically it. I mean, playing. Oh well, there's one other thing. Events reminds me a little bit of the event cards in the Plague Inc. board game. You do get there's not a lot of them. I kind of wish there were more, but little events will pop up, and you usually get 3 options to choose, and sometimes one of the options, the middle one, you need to have invested in a specific technology, or you need to have done something spent money on something in your upgrade tree in order to choose that one. Or sometimes you just need to have enough money for it. Like one of them that came up was organize an international wrestling tournament.
This sounds like the Olympics, Dave, and Plague.
Yeah, I never got to do it either, so I don't even know what happens when you do it.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I know, but I mean, some of the ones that I have done, they're amusing, but they're not hugely exciting. But yeah, that's kind of it. You upgrade, unlock new guys, new generals. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's simple, and most playthroughs kind of feel the same, if you see what I mean. But I guess for £2, it's you can't really complain too much, I would say. And there is something kind of compelling about it, slightly educational.
Is there any way, like, because I know, like in Plague Inc., every playthrough can play the same, or it can be the same, but you can change the type of disease that you are, which kind of changes the game a little, because you have to maybe play it slightly differently. So is there any way of sort of varying?
Yeah, you unlock new governors, and there's things like the general, which lets you spend money on troops straight out the gate. That's his power, that kind of thing. But I didn't feel that they changed the game massively. They changed it a little bit. A few new things, a few new upgrades might be available, but not. I mean, it was good. It's good that it's there, and there's like
it's the same in Plague Inc.
There's advisors that you unlock. They're quite cool. They make the game a little bit easier. But I mean, it's good for a phone game though. It's the sort of thing that I would just I'm not going to play it every day, but every now and again I might be like, oh yeah, I'll just have a little shot of this. It's kind of fun. It's got a random mission generator or operation name generator as well, which I highly approve of. Mine were called Enduring Beetle, Tornado Odysseus, and Painful Unicorn was one of them as well.
Oh, Painful Unicorn, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's both distressing and fancy free.
Fabulous. So that came out last year, December 2018, thereabouts, round about then, by Endemic Creations on iOS and Android as well.
Excellent. Okay. Well, we're going to have to wrap up there.
My goodness.
We will do all our internet stuff, so if you want to email us, you can do so at firstplayertoken@gmail.com. Please email us. Let us know what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong. If you have any questions that you want to ask us that we can answer on the show, please do that as well. So it's firstplayertoken@gmail.com. If you want to find us on the interwebs, then you can do so by going to our website, which is firstplayertoken.com. And you can find links to all our social media stuff there. If you want to keep up to date with what mostly Pawel at the moment is talking about on Twitter, you can check out our Twitter, which is @1stplayertoken.
That's OneSplayerToken.
Thank you very much, David. And we are part of the Podnose Network,
the UK's leading entertainment podcast network.
And Euan's not here to give us an update on any of the other shows that are there. Again, he is your Podnose correspondent. So we'll get an update next time he's on. Hopefully we'll get a board games episode in sometime soon. We will be back next week. But until then, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.